I did want to kind of explore just life outside of work, right? When you're used to just your work being your life, I wanted to see, okay, well, who am I outside of work? Will my personality change? What do I want to do? What brings me joy?
Welcome to the Quit Work podcast, 15-minute conversations with people who have quit their job and gone their own way. I'm Mark, and today I'm talking to Brooke, who took time off from her job in the pharmaceutical industry to travel the world solo. Brooke also has an Instagram at Brooke Meets World, where you can see photos of her adventures around the world. Brooke, welcome to the Quit Work podcast.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, happy to be here.
Tell us about your work in pharmaceuticals. What was that like before you went travelling?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've spent most of my working career in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm a chemical engineer by trade, but I sort of meandered over to the commercial side of the business, honestly, just to make more money. Um, I hate to say
Scientists
I
don't
did
get
sell
paid
out.
the same way as people on the business side, do they?
In the pharmaceutical space, unfortunately, no. I'm sure that differs in other industries and in other countries, but yeah, I sort of just followed the opportunities and um, I hate to say that I sold out, but I kind of did. But it was also really interesting getting to learn about, the business world. And I got more into the data analytics side, which was still my comfort zone being an engineer.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And yeah. So I think I got really lucky actually that I got the opportunity to try a bunch of different things at the company I previously worked at. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounded like it was kind of more of a strategy job that you moved into. It sounds like you were kind of sometimes a little bit caught in the middle between different departments.
It's true, yeah. So the last job I had before I did my, I guess, mini retirement, you could call it, I was working on the sales strategy side and doing a lot of operations and analytics. And it actually was a great job. The people were incredible, but it was a bit stressful in that there was only one of me, and I would have to work across different departments, and I had to synthesize all this information, and essentially I had to come up with a strategy or a path forward that took all of this information into account. And so what that meant was that all these different departments who had different views, no one ever really got what they wanted. And so
Yeah.
so basically I had to constantly give bad news to everybody all the time.
I bet you were
And so
popular then.
yeah, right. It was it was a bit stressful, and after working for a decade or so, I just very much felt the need to take some time off and sort of get my head out of the rat race and kind of reprioritize.
One thing that you said that really resonated with me is work always wanted more from me. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's true, and I was really lucky to work at a really great company, and a lot of the people I worked with always gave it 110% and were brilliant. And it's a great thing to be able to work with people like that, but it also
Yeah.
meant that you're just always giving it your best. You're always putting in extra hours, always kind of also feeling like you're not good enough, even if you're, still doing a great job. And so it felt like it was sort of this, I don't want to say time suck, but it was. Honestly, you could spend really an unlimited amount of time. And with just the work culture in the US, it's very much glorified to just be, spending hours, weekends, nights at work. People often congratulate you for this and say, "Oh
Yeah.
wow, that's a real badass over there." Where
Yeah.
it's not necessarily very, healthy for you long term, or in life there's a lot of things you have to sacrifice in order to do that. And so it did feel like, yeah, work always wanted more. And depending on your personality, for me, I was someone that was like really wanting to do a good job and really cared, and so it got more. It kept getting more of me.
Yeah. It's a crazy dynamic, isn't it, where everybody congratulates you and holds you up as a great example if you are working like crazy. And it's almost like it's measured by the number of hours you work rather than the amount of work you get done, how effective that work is. I know that outside of
Exactly.
work,
Yeah.
you're an acrobat and you're a scuba diver and you're a surfer. So how did you square kind of all those different things that are part of your life with what must have been a very different work life?
Yeah. Well, I will say the sad thing is surfing and scuba diving in San Francisco is a little more advanced than I would give myself credit for. And so those hobbies tended to be on a travel basis only. But yeah, I really am passionate about partner acrobatics. So I was a cheerleader in university, and which I guess if you're outside of the US, it might not mean much, but this is the type of thing where you're getting launched in the air and doing flips and all of that. And so it's really fun. And so I found my way into the acro yoga community. And yeah, in general, well, let's see, when I was working, I usually could manage to do it about twice a week. So um,
Oh, that's pretty good.
usually once on a weekend and then once during the week. But we would start late. Usually we'd start at 8 or 9 p.m. and go until midnight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you can definitely find the time. For me too, it's just something that you have to be so present. You have to be so focused on what you're
Yeah.
doing, and it really can relieve stress, honestly. Yeah, it takes you out of you can't be thinking about what you have to do tomorrow when you're upside
Yeah.
down in someone's hands.
Yeah. I know that you didn't actually have to quit your job because you were laid off. How did it feel when you found out that you'd been laid off?
Yeah, it felt like I won the lottery.
It's so funny, isn't it? Managers are so terrified of telling people that they've been laid off, and sometimes the response is, "I've been laid off. That's fantastic. Thank you."
Yeah, well, I was feeling very much ready to quit um, before that, to be very transparent. I was planning on putting in my notice in March of 2020, and then just a few little changes in the world in March of 2020 led me to
Yeah.
to keep my job and keep,
Yeah.
being American too. I rely on my employment for health insurance, and so I ended up just staying employed a little bit longer. And I was also really lucky to have a a manager who was very much an advocate for what was best for me. And he actually had a conversation with me a few months prior, asking me, you know, like you can read the writing on the wall. We're going to have
Right.
some changes. What is it that would make you, happy and be the best for you? And so I felt really lucky to be able to have this amount of candor in the conversation. And I mentioned that I would very much benefit from having the layoff. And so when I did get the call, he said, "Brooke, I know this is going to be my easiest conversation of the day." I was like,
That's
yeah,
fantastic. It's great when you're a little bit more prepared for it like that than if it comes as a unexpected shock.
totally. Yeah. And I feel really lucky, honestly, that I was in that position. I know not everybody was. And so, I have to just take the wins when I get them and be grateful for them.
Yeah. And in a way, you did quit because you could have pursued new positions in the same company, but you chose not to.
Yeah. Well, because I was planning on quitting prior to the layoff, this was just this amazing surprise. So I thought about it a little bit because honestly it's scary, right? Working is all I knew. I was in San Francisco where the cost of living is so high, the work culture is so intense. In San Francisco, when you go to a party, everyone asks, "Oh, who do you work for? What do you do?" Because
Yeah.
that's the conversation, right? No one asks, "What do you do for fun?" I mean, eventually you'll get there, but your work is truly your identity, especially in a place like San Francisco. So it was a little scary to just accept it, but it was also really freeing, extremely freeing. And again, I was so lucky. We had a really generous severance package, and so it essentially funded uh, all of my travels. And so I was so lucky, and I think I would be crazy to turn that
Yeah.
down. Um, yeah, but it definitely it crossed my mind because it's just so scary when all you know is just work culture to leave that.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So, for the last 18 months, you've been traveling Europe, the Middle East, and Central America all solo.
Yeah.
When you left work and you were planning your travels, what were your expectations? What were you thinking you were gonna get out of it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I didn't know for sure. I did want to kind of explore just life outside of work, right? When you're used to
Yeah.
just your work being your life, I wanted to see, okay, well, who am I outside of work? Will my personality change? What do I want to do? What brings me joy? Um, will I be more of a planner or less of a planner? Turns out way less of a planner when I'm not working.
Oh, interesting.
And I yeah, and I wanted to meet people. I travel really cheaply,
Yeah.
staying in hostels and sometimes even couch surfing. And I wanted to meet new people from all over the world. I wanted to explore, regions of the world I've never been to. I wanted to, get some new skills. Like, for example, surfing and scuba is something that I got to spend a lot more time on while traveling. And yeah, also think about if I ever want to leave. So I've been in the US my whole life, really. So if I ever wanted to live abroad, where might that be? And kind of explore some other countries with the intention of maybe moving one day. Yeah, it was just having complete freedom and also just flexibility. I mean, traveling during a pandemic, of course, doesn't always lend itself to a lot of flexibility, but I think it also brought me to places that I might not normally think of going because they were open.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, there's a lot of ethics involved with all of this. So I think staying safe, keeping other people safe, following all the rules,
Yeah.
all of that I think is really important. But like I never would have went to Slovakia if not
Yeah.
for it just kind of worked out with my travel plans. And I loved that country. It was amazing mountains. Bratislava was so fun and cool, and I'm so happy that I made it. So yeah, being just kind of opportunistic and what presented itself was just the ultimate freedom, I think, for traveling.
Can you think of any one particular place or experience or encounter that had a particular impact on you?
Oh, so oh, okay, I have a list of like 20 of them, so I'll tell you one.
Okay.
One moment I had that just really it always sticks out to me because it was like it gives me shivers thinking about it was so I was in Slovenia and I ended up hiking their tallest peak with my friend Lisa, who I just met, a awesome woman from Germany. And it's a 2-day hike, and you stay in this mountain hut overnight, and it's pretty intense. It's a Via Ferrata route, which for the hiker or the non-hikers out there, you essentially need a harness and a helmet, and you have to clip in because if you fall, you're gone. So I
Yeah.
I love stuff like this, um, and so we ended up meeting this group of local Slovenians at this hut, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna go at sunrise. Do you want to come?" We're like, "Yeah, sure." Like it would be really nice to have like people that have done this before because you're not considered a true Slovenian until you climb this peak, Mount Triglav.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And so we do it. We get up in like basically the middle of the night and, we're climbing in the dark with our little headlamps and it's just so cool. And then we reach the peak and I happen to have a full size Slovenian flag because someone I had traveled with collects them and stores were closed on his last day. So I bought one that I was going to ship to him, but I figured, well, I'll take it up the mountain first and then I'll ship it to him. And so I'm getting a photo at the very top holding this flag, not really thinking too much about it, but all this because it was really just only Slovenians there. They all
Yeah.
turned to me and they started singing their national anthem, and it
Oh,
was
wow.
sunrise. So the colors were incredible, and I was on the top of the mountain, and I was just holding their flag, and they were all looking and singing at me, and like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It was just like so like majestic. I don't know how to describe it, but it was really cool. Yeah, Slovenia was totally I don't know if I call it a hidden gem, but oh my gosh, the nature there and the people are so cool and the wine. Uh, so yeah,
Fantastic.
definitely exceeded expectations. Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you're back from your travels and you're in a new job. How's that going?
Yeah, so I'm in my third week of a new job. I went back to the pharmaceutical industry and it's a little it's a little intense. It's crazy how being gone for 18 months and then coming back to my home. I'm actually right now I'm in the Seattle area, which is where I grew up. I'm with my family, so this should be the most comfortable thing in the world for me, but in a lot of ways it is, but it's wow, even just going to a grocery store is a bit overwhelming when you're used to being abroad and not having these giant Costco's and whatnot. Um, but it actually does feel really good. I think I have a very different mindset about work now than I did in the past. And before, work was very much a part of my identity. The things that were most important to me were climbing the corporate ladder, getting promotion, etc. Now I still care, right? I think if you're someone who really cares, it's no matter what you do, you'll still, have motivation, but I very much view it as a tool. I'm pretty passionate about personal finance, and so it's going to allow me to accomplish financial goals, hopefully give me more freedom to be able to travel in the future.
Yeah,
And I think I'm approaching it with I guess less stress, just kind of enjoying the process, understanding
yeah.
that I don't have to be perfect and just try my best and just enjoy it.
And you mentioned the possibility of living somewhere other than in the US. That's kind of a major change. So, how has travel shifted your thinking on that?
Yeah. Um, I think there's a couple of benefits to leaving the US. And the US is amazing at a lot of things. I don't want to give the impression that I'm not, a fan of my country. Um, but I think there are a lot of benefits, at least for me personally, that if I was to live abroad for an undetermined amount of time, I think I would like. I think the open-mindedness that you see in a lot of well, clearly it depends, but I'm kind of leaning more towards a Nordic country. Um, and the social safety nets, I think, could be really amazing for, you know, raising a family and kind of living a more low stress life. It's amazing when you're not worried about being crushed by medical debt, how the
Yep.
weight off your shoulders can just disappear. But I think also the concept of geo arbitrage is very intriguing because one thing I did notice is that in the US, you actually can make these honestly like stupid high salaries. You, of course, have to pay for your health insurance and healthcare. University in the US, student debt, it's crippling and it's really hurt a lot of people. Um, but if you can find a way to live and work here when you're younger, if you're lucky enough to not be crushed by student debt,
Yep.
be able to save, and as you get older, when you think about when you might need more healthcare, and if you have children, if you want to put them through university, if you can do that abroad, you all of a sudden these massive costs that I think almost every American worries about can be, significantly lowered. So I'm thinking living in the US for, I don't know, maybe another 5 years. I do like it here. My family's here. Our national parks are amazing.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it'd be really fun to live in another country and experience another culture and, hopefully raise kids with a different perspective and a bit more open-mindedness than we see throughout the US.
So, listeners, if you'd like to connect with Brooke, you can follow her on Instagram at Brooke Meets World. That's BROOKE.meets.world. Or you can check out her blog at brookmeetsworld.com. Brooke, thanks so much for joining me on the Quit Work podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Great talking with you.
Thanks for listening to the Quit Work podcast. I love talking to people who have taken the bold step of quitting their job to start living their true life. Join me for a fresh conversation every week. Subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel at quitworkproject.com. And if you have any comments on this episode, or if you'd like to tell your own quit work story, I'd love to hear from you. Contact me at quitworkproject.com or on Twitter or Instagram at quitworkproject. I hope you too find your way to quitting work and living your true life.